Speaker.
Are there any constituency statements by honourable members? The member for Paterson.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. A major part of our government's agenda is a future made in Australia, and that future involves rebuilding our manufacturing base and continuing to support the brilliant manufacturers we have. And I'm so proud to represent some of the world-leading manufacturers right out of my electorate. For over 16 years now, Jamie Howard and his wife Jill have been managing an incredible company called the HMS Group in Thornton. As a local business leader, Jamie has made incredible steps forward with mining and manufacturing in the Hunter region, designing, building and delivering quality safety solutions for the global market, including the United States, China, Germany, South Africa and Chile. His work has also been acknowledged through multiple manufacturing and export awards, including the 2019 Australian Safety Solution of the Year. Thank you for making the mining workplaces of the Hunter and the world, quite frankly, more safe, Jamie, Jill and the HMS Group. I recently had the pleasure to visit HMS Group on the occasion of the unveiling of their brand new piece of equipment named the Spider, spelt with a Y, that pushes the envelope for efficient, quality safety solutions, specifically in the mining industry. It is innovations like these that are vital for keeping workers safe in, quite frankly, very dangerous situations. Jamie is also a major advocate for ensuring we have a solid base of educated apprentices. He is employing the people that are going through TAFE and now being able to do some of those courses for free. What Jamie and his group are doing is building the next generation of fitters, electricians, boiler makers. They're having a quality education at TAFE and they are receiving incredible training on the job at HMS Group. Thank you for doing that and bringing that next generation of Australian makers to the fore. It was great to see Jamie's passion for industry that is so clearly evident in his products and the quality that he produces. And I also went to Tank Solutions at Tomago recently. This facility employs 70 people and creates above and underground storage tank solutions for fuel, chemical and water industries. Tank Solutions is one of only 2 companies in Australia that manufacture 2- and 4-hour fire-rated tanks under licence from the Steel Tank Institute of the United States of America. These are tanks that are used in emergency power systems where emergency power is required on standby, including in commercial buildings and hospitals. It is incredible manufacturing that is going on in my electorate. Thank you for those people who turn up every day and do that work.
Thank you. The member for Curtin.
As we enter a likely long, hot summer ahead, how can Australians stay cool and keep home temperatures and their energy bills as low as possible? Australian rooftop solar is the cheapest home energy in the world. With solar panels, a battery, electric appliances and an electric car, a home can run on $560 a year, a tenth of the cost of having gas appliances, a petrol car and no solar, a tenth. But how do you get there? A group of Curtin volunteers worked for 12 months to generate a detailed report called Curtin's Pathway to Net Zero. One community-driven project that evolved out of Curtin Net Zero is a comprehensive website that helps households electrify efficiently. Check it out at electrifycurtin.com.au. But a community website is obviously not enough for the massive task ahead. Government support is needed to speed up electrification and make it available for everyone. The good news is there are low-interest loans supported by the government for this purpose. In May 2023, the government announced a $1 billion allocation for a new household energy upgrades fund to help Australians efficiently electrify their homes. But the bad news is these loans are a well-kept secret. Only a third of the funding has been allocated, and we need other ways to use the allocated funding for better access and equity. This fund needs a much more effective public campaign so Australians know how to access it. It's been allocated to Plenty and Westpac and soon ING to offer discounted rate loans of up to $50,000 to home or investment property owners to make energy efficient upgrades such as rooftop solar, home battery, EV charging or hot water heat pumps. We've added some information about accessing this on our Electrify Curtin website for constituents who own property. But only $300 million of the $1 billion has been allocated through these providers so far. We need to do this now so Australians and the climate can reap the benefits. For the remaining $700,000, the fund needs a shake-up for access and equity. It shouldn't just be for those lucky enough to have a home loan with the right bank. The remaining funds should be deployed through a broader range of channels and structures. The government should consider zero-interest loans or deferred loans repayable when your house is sold, or access through other channels like state government agencies, local governments, or through larger installers. Where the cost of living or rising temperatures are top of mind, now is the time for faster and fairer electrification. And the government has a great opportunity at this point to rejig the Household Energy Upgrades Fund to ensure better access and equity.
Thank you. Thank you. The member for Sydney.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I last spoke in this chamber on the 27th of June this year about a very serious issue in my electorate on Lord Howe Island. I spoke about the potential loss of their air service. Of course, as an island, Lord Howe Island depends on Qantas, the only carrier, to make sure that people are able to access the mainland for education, for healthcare, but also so that its main industry, tourism, is able to continue. Qantas are retiring their smaller turboprop aircraft, and that, of course, was a real worry for the people of Lord Howe Island. In good news for the residents of Lord Howe Island and the 16,000 visitors who go there every year, I'm pleased to report that the flights between Sydney and Lord Howe Island will continue as a partnership between Qantas and regional airline Skytrans. The national carrier will be retiring its Q200 aircraft that currently operate the route, and Skytrans will be taking over that licence and will be instead running the route exclusively from the 26th of February 2026. Skytrans is an Australian-based passenger airline that has been serving the Cape and the Torres Strait region for more than 30 years, and they have extensive experience providing air service to remote communities and islands. Qantas and Skytrans are finalising a code share agreement that will commence when Skytrans starts to operate those flights. That'll mean that both Lord Howe Island locals and tourists will be able to continue to book their flights to and from Lord Howe Island through Qantas. The Lord Howe Island Skytrans flights will continue to operate on the same schedule and frequency as Qantas Link's operations have done to date, and Skytrans intends to operate these from the Qantas Terminal 3 in Sydney Airport, so there'll be no impact to existing bookings. Qantas Link CEO Rachel Yangoyan has committed to maintaining services to the island. I very much welcome that commitment, and I will be watching it very closely. Skytrans has been awarded the licence to operate the regulated route until March 2030. The transition timeline means that until 29th of March 2025, Qantas Link will continue to operate its existing flights under its current licence. In a transitional period between the 30th of March 2025 and the 25th of February 2026, Qantas Link will operate existing flights and sharing the regulated route with Skytrans. Skytrans pilots and crew might be doing training during that transition period, and then from February 26 to March 2030, Skytrans will operate all the flights under its exclusive licence.
Thank you. The member for Wannon.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. The Streatham-Urrumbine Road, Glenelg Highway intersection has seen, sadly, accidents occurring on a regular basis. Sadly, we've seen deaths occur, and we've seen dozens of accidents where there have been serious injuries. Now, when we were in government, we allocated $2.5 million to fix this intersection. And we've given that money to the state government. Now, the state government has committed to fixing the intersection. They're going to put additional lights in place and a roundabout. But the sad thing is, like we've seen with a lot of projects right across Victoria, is that even though the planning has been done, action has stalled on fixing this very dangerous intersection. And I call on the state government to get to work on this project, because if they don't, then the sad reality is we're likely to see more accidents occurring. Now, I went and saw the Infrastructure Minister yesterday to raise this issue with her as to what is happening with this intersection, and she has given me a commitment, or her office has given me a commitment to report back as to why it seems that this project has stalled. Now, we have seen something occur. We've got on one passage into that intersection, we now have some orange flashing lights. They were put there some time ago, and we are also seeing that some areas around where the roundabout would go, there has been some sort of planning. But once again, all this seems to have come to a halt. So I'm hopeful that the Victorian State Government will see it as a priority to now make sure that the work on this intersection takes place and takes place immediately. Because the last thing my constituents want to see is the state government focusing entirely on the big build in Melbourne at the expense of our roads. And sadly, with a 95% cut in the maintenance budget by the state government and a near half cutting by the Albanese Labor government in road maintenance, we're seeing that, but we cannot see major upgrades to an intersection like this where we've seen dozens of accidents and fatalities be held up again by this state government.
The member for Kingsford Smith.
Thanks, Speaker. It was my honour to welcome His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew to Sydney last month on behalf of the Australian Government. His All Holiness is the Patriarch of the Greek Orthodox Church throughout the world, and as the spiritual leader of Orthodox Christians, he's become one of the most revered religious figures of our time. The visit coincided with the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of Australia. The Church has helped preserve the culture, language and traditions of Australia's Greek community, connecting more than 400,000 people to their heritage. And thousands of Greek Australians turned out in our community to celebrate this special anniversary. And I was fortunate to join hundreds at St Andrew's Greek Orthodox Church in Redfern for a Mass presided over by His All Holiness, and the Prime Minister and the Governor were in attendance as well. I'm proud to represent Kingsford Smith, that has a thriving Greek community, and they were involved in those celebrations as well. We're deeply honoured by the presence of His All Holiness during that special time. I want to pay tribute to him for his spiritual guidance to so many in our community. He's worked for the peaceful coexistence of all people. And as we reflect with thanks on the past 100 years of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of Australia, we have so much reason to be hopeful for the next 100 years as well. Speaker, earlier this month I was delighted to join celebrations for the 50th anniversary of the Australia-Chinese Community Association in Sydney. It's an incredible journey that the association has taken since it was founded in 1974 by a group of dedicated volunteers. Since that time, it's been a vital part of our community, helping new migrants settle into Australian life. What started as a small service has grown into a broad organisation that provides essential support to so many. Today, the Australian-Chinese Community Association employs over 350 staff who assist around 1,100 clients each week. And it celebrates Chinese heritage through language classes, festivals and cultural events, as well as building connected communities through various services, including aged care and disability services. They've helped so many with disabilities from a Chinese background in our community, allowing them to live independent and fulfilling lives. I'm very proud that in Kingsford Smith, we've got over 23,000 locals with Chinese heritage. And in our community, Mandarin is the most spoken language after English, and Cantonese is the third most spoken language. I want to pay tribute to Christine Mock, the President of the Australian Chinese Association, and good friends Ted Sang and Shirley Chan. Shirley's been a previous president, and they work so hard in our community. So congratulations to the Australian Chinese Community Association on your 50th anniversary.
Thank you. The member for Forde.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And as with all of us, I'm sure, in this place, we have the privilege at this time of year to go and attend a number of school graduations. And I've had that privilege over the past couple of weeks back in the electorate, attending some of the graduation ceremonies and awards ceremonies, particularly for our high school students. And these ceremonies are momentous occasions where the students get to reflect, they have a sense of anticipation for what comes next, but also a sense of celebration for their finishing 13 years of schooling. To all of the school leavers and to all of graduates across the electorate of Forde, congratulations on reaching this incredible milestone in your educational journey. One of the great things that we get to do at some of these awards nights is recognise some terrific students right across the schools. And I'd like to just congratulate some of these students that have had the privilege of winning the various awards that I sponsor across a variety of my local schools. Orlando Chen from Beenleigh State High School, Oliver Neal from Calvary Christian College, Vinya Ada from Chisholm College, Madeline Delaney at Cooma Anglican College, and Loganley High School's Yvette Aspden. Over at Marsden State High School, the largest school in Queensland with more than 4,000 enrolled students, had 2 awards to a grade 9 student in Corinne Macairo and a year 12 student, Caleb Berkowitz. Parklands Christian College Award went to Gabriella Neal, and Parkridge State High School was awarded to Jacob Brindle. All of these students are a tremendous testament to their communities and the wonderful work they do. At Rivermount College, Alex Bird won the award, Joshua Webster at Charlotte Park State High School, Jaron Oliphant at St Stephen's College, Bodie Shepherd at Windaroo Valley State High School, and at Upper Coomera State College to Ebony Nielsen and Kieran Efer. Also, we have the primary awards to come up over the next few weeks, so I'll congratulate all of those award winners in advance, but I won't name them at this point in time because that would spoil the surprise. Can I also take the opportunity to thank all of the teachers, all of the administrators, all of the staff at the schools for the terrific job they do each and every year to make our schools such a wonderful place for our students to attend. To all of the parents as well for your support to your students to get them to where they've got to today. Congratulations and thank you for your efforts. Completing high school education would not be possible without the terrific team of supporters you have in both your parents, your families and all of your teachers. So well done to everybody. Congratulations and all the best for your future journey.
Thank you. The member for Jagga Jagga.
Malahang Festival in West Heidelberg on the weekend. This is an absolutely much loved and anticipated highlight on the calendar for everyone in the 3081 community and the surrounding communities. It really is a true celebration of our local community, featuring a culturally diverse program and nearly 30 stalls from groups right across Banyule, showcasing the work of many incredible community groups. I really enjoyed doing things like checking out the Banyule Scouts' impressive climbing frame that they'd made, and certainly my daughter enjoyed trying that 4 times over, I think. Exploring the colouring activities at the Barbin and Beak Aboriginal Gathering Place stall, and of course supporting the important work of our 3081 Angels, who do such important work donating pre-loved baby and children's furniture and clothing to families in our area who need it. Also, while there, I caught up with the Lifeblood team, and they are issuing an urgent call for blood donations this summer. There are more than 1,600 appointments that need to be filled before New Year's to maintain the blood supply, and of course this is a critical time for that blood supply. Locally in our community, the Bundoora Donor Centre is open, including on public holidays, and the Eltham Pop-Up Centre will be available from January 7 to 17. So I am urging locals, if you do have time, please contact those centres and donate. I do want to acknowledge the staff and organisers of the Malahang Festival at Banyule City Council for ensuring that the festival is a great success this year and every year. Also a shout out to my amazing volunteers who manned my community stall during the day and made sure that we had some great conversations with locals. Thank you. Deputy Speaker, I would like to highlight two fantastic organisations in my electorate that help older Australians age well and stay actively involved in our community. I've always really valued the important role that U3As play in fostering personal connections, lifelong learning and engagement in the older Australian community. So I was pleased to visit with Banyule U3A a couple of weeks ago and catch up with a number of the members there. Banyule U3A was founded in 1986 with an initial membership of just 59 people, and it is in fact one of the oldest U3As in Victoria. Today it has more than 900 members, making it the largest seniors group in the city of Banyule. A big thank you to Sue and her team for welcoming me, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Congratulations to the Eltham's Men's Shed, who celebrated their 10th anniversary in August, and I acknowledge the incredible contribution this group makes to our community. It was a pleasure to celebrate their milestone. Heartfelt thanks to Lyons and the hardworking committee members for all their dedication. I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you. The member for Herbert.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. There is a question that all Australians should be asking themselves to really test the government, to make sure that the promises that were made before the last election are being fulfilled. And that is, am I better off today than I was before the last election? Am I in a better position now than I was before the last election? Has my power prices gone down? Has my mortgages lowered? Can I afford rent, groceries, petrol prices? Can I afford insurance? And do I feel safer? The reality is the answer to all of these is no. Your power prices have skyrocketed. The promise of $275 this year and every other year was a lie. Your mortgages have gone up. We've seen criminals released into the street. Petrol prices are at record highs, and people can't afford to get insurance. The number one role of a government is to keep you safe. The second is to tackle the cost of living crisis. This has not occurred under the Albanese Labor government, because the first point of business that they decided to do was to call a referendum, to spend $400 million to go to the polls. Instead of tackling the crippling cost of living crisis, they decided to bring a divisive referendum to the people, even though they were told it would fail. We've seen people's lives be made worse, not better. My office in Townsville, which is a regional part of Australia, is feeling the pinch of the lack of action and lack of policies that are being brought forward by this Labor government. Now, if it's a bad policy and it hurts a city, you times it by 20 and that's what it feels like in the regions. The cost of living crisis that we face is something that every single person in Townsville is feeling right now. And then during this debacle of term of government, we saw the Australian Defence Force be let down time and time again. Sonar used on divers where they were injured, and the Prime Minister, too weak to call out the bad behaviour and raise it with Xi Jinping. We saw flares fired at an Australian military helicopter, risking the lives of those on board. Once again, no minister or the Prime Minister stood up for our people. Now the misinformation bill, which will allow a single minister to be the arbiter of the truth. We stand against this and we'll fight for you.
The member for Cornwall.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Minister for Education last week announced the sites for the government's suburban university study hubs. The hubs are a great way for people to access and study a wide range of tertiary courses across Australia without having to leave their communities. It's fantastic news, Deputy Speaker, that one of the sites will be in Broadmeadows in my electorate of Cornwall, which will form part of La Trobe University's Northern Suburbs Study Hub. Our local students will now have the opportunity, especially from disadvantaged communities who live greater distances away from major university campuses, to participate and succeed in higher education. The bid for Broadmeadows involved extensive community consultation led by La Trobe University in collaboration with our local Kangan TAFE and with Hume City Council and other local partners committed to addressing the need for dedicated study facilities and wraparound support in Melbourne's north. La Trobe University's Vice-Chancellor Professor Theo Farrell said, and I quote, "If we are to succeed in doubling higher education participation and attainment by 2050, as outlined in the university's accord, we would require both a significant effort and a generational change. The Northern Suburbs Study Hub will be important to help achieve that goal." And further to the quote, "By providing access to resources beyond ordinary business hours and fostering an environment of academic support, our ambition is for the hub to play a crucial role in building readiness and aspiration for tertiary level study and to help meet critical skill needs in the area," quote unquote. Deputy Speaker, the Broadmeadows hub will be located on the ground floor of the Hume City Council building. It's close to public transport, located just minutes away from the Broadmeadows train station, with bus connectivity, and sits within the major council services and shopping precinct. Figures from the 2021 census on LGA boundaries, Deputy Speaker, show that in the city of Hume, the attainment rates for bachelor or higher degrees sits at about 33.2% for those in the age group between 25 and 34, and only 22.2% in the age groups of 15 to 64-year-old.
A division has been called for in the House. The proceedings are suspended to enable honourable members to attend the division. The proceedings will resume when the Chair of the Federation Chamber is resumed at the conclusion of the division or subsequent divisions.
statements.
It's 30 minutes in total.
It's 30 minutes of statements, not 30 minutes of... Do you know what I mean? Sorry. So 40 seconds and then call me.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Our community has a much lower tertiary education participation, and we need to make every effort to improve this. Evidence shows that where there are university study hubs, university participation goes up. And as Melbourne's outer north is forecast to grow by an additional 102,000 homes by 2060, and that's about 318,850 people, better access to higher education will be vital to ensuring that our students have access to and that universities can better provide educational opportunities that meet the skills and training needs. And I want to thank Minister Jason Clare, whose passion for education and commitment that everyone gets a fair go regardless of postcode will see my community benefit from the opportunities that will now be afforded to them.
Time has expired. In accordance with Standing Order 193, the time for members' constituency statements has concluded, and I call the clerk.
Government business, order of the day number 1, Customs Amendment, ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand, Free Trade Area, Second Protocol, Implementation and other measures, Bill 2024, resumption of debate on second reading.
The question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the member for Sturt.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I'm thrilled to speak on this bill and disappointed that I seem to be the only speaker, because I think it's on one of the extremely important issues that we should all be seeking an opportunity to discuss in this chamber, and that is expanding the economic opportunity that free trade provides. Free trade is under siege in some parts of the world at the moment, quite concerningly. Some parts of the world are looking to engage in an increase of protectionism, and thankfully in this country we have a very important political consensus between our major parties that free trade is a good thing. And as a nation with a very healthy, proudly healthy trade surplus, we know that we are a wealthier country because of trade than we would be without trade. And indeed, when you look at just agriculture as an example, there are a little over 27 million people living in this country, and the often quoted figure, which I'm quite sure is accurate, is that we produce enough food in this country to feed 70 million people. That means we feed the 27 million Australians and 43 million other people around the world, and that's good for those people that need the food, but it's also good for our primary producers who are able to, of course, produce more than could be consumed just in this nation and make that wealth from selling overseas. And whether it's the mining sector, whether it's the manufacturing sector, the services sector, we know that the wealth of this country is underpinned by that trade. You think about our largest export, iron ore. Of course, the amount of iron ore that we use in this country to transform into steel, in my home state, of course at Whyalla for the long-form products, and indeed in Wollongong, the other major steel plant for sheet steel. Whilst that happens to meet the needs of this country, we have got spectacular quantities of iron ore, which of course are exported in equally spectacular quantities around the world for the steel-making needs of other nations, and it earns tens of billions, sometimes more than hundreds of billions of dollars for our economy. And so many other natural resources that we're happily endowed with make such an enormous difference to the wealth and the standards of living of everyone in this country. So I applaud the fact that we haven't lost our way and haven't gone down the path of populist rhetoric around tariffs and restricting the flow of goods and services across our border, because we are so much wealthier because of that. So this bill deals with continued harmonisation opportunities with our relationship and trade agreements between ASEAN and Australia and New Zealand. I've had a terrible experience, regularly occurring experience in my life with disgraceful non-tariff barriers that certain jurisdictions try to use to obfuscate trade. And in my time in the wool industry, we would always have these tactics, particularly from the European Union, to make it as difficult as possible, particularly in, I happen to be in wool, but anyone that's in agriculture knows some of the appalling practices that the EU has engaged in over time to frustrate the ability of good quality Australian produce getting into markets like within the EU. I once had to get a government-sanctioned vet to provide a health certificate for a 1 kilo spindle of yarn because there was this suggestion that it couldn't be sent into the EU unless a vet had inspected a piece of yarn that had been superwashed, I might add. So superwashing is a hydrochloric acid treatment of wool fibre before it is combed and spun and dyed. The suggestion that that needed to have a health certificate from a vet to make sure that it wasn't carrying some kind of potential biological risky disease was absolutely ludicrous. But these tactics were, of course, have been used many, many times to frustrate our fair and free market access that we should be entitled to through agreements. Now, never had any issues with the excellent relationship that we have with the ASEAN and New Zealand nations, and I think the three parties that we're discussing in this legislation are probably excellent examples of people that have some of the highest standards of good quality trade liberalised practices and welcome the opportunity for the competition that provides. So I appreciate the opportunity to make some brief comments on this bill. I commend the bipartisanship that we have with the government when it comes to looking for every opportunity possible to continue to enter into agreements, sign agreements to provide better and more open access for good quality Australian goods and services to access export markets and welcome the competition that flows from the nations that we sign these agreements with. I'm not aware of any example of Australia not being a very open and willing partner to negotiate with any other jurisdictions that want to talk about a sensible reduction in trade barriers between our economy and theirs. There's lots of more opportunities to undertake into the future. It is very disappointing, the sad state of the multilateral World Trade Organisation process of further trade liberalisation. That's not the fault in any way, shape or form of this country. We've always been a very willing participant in those trade negotiation rounds, but disappointingly, and particularly because of the way in which you have to achieve agreement through the WTA process, we, of course, haven't seen any meaningful progress really since the Uruguay rounds that saw the 94 agreements and the 95 establishment of the World Trade Organisation. But I know that the bipartisanship in this chamber, by and large, will always see us being a very open, keen and willing partner to multilateral avenues, but this is a good example where we won't sit back and wait for the WTO processes to continue to grind at a glacial pace seemingly towards nowhere. We will always engage in bilateral agreements with willing parties. So I commend this bill to the House, which sees us further streamline and harmonise the way in which we undertake the specifics of trade documentation and trade bureaucracy between ASEAN, Australia and New Zealand.
The question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I put the question. All those of that opinion say aye. Against no. I think the ayes have it. I call the clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to amend the Customs Act 1901 and for related purposes.
If no member wishes to consider the bill in detail, I'll put the report question immediately. The question is that this bill be reported to the House without amendment. All those of that opinion say aye. Against no. I think the ayes have it, and I call the clerk. That is a quorum. I call the clerk.
Government business, order of the day number 2, Navigation Amendment Bill 2024, resumption of debate on second reading.
The question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the Minister.
Thank you. In summing up on this bill, can I thank the opposition for indicating their support for it. The bill seeks to ensure Australia continues to implement our obligations under the International Convention for Safety of Life at Sea, 1974, the SOLAS, including by meeting the relevant international standards on seafarer safety. The bill reflects amendments to the SOLAS Convention to provide standards for the safety of industrial personnel. Industrial personnel are those persons transported or accommodated on board a vessel for the purpose of offshore industrial activities performed on board other ships or offshore facilities. The carriage of industrial personnel differs to that of other passengers, as the vessels used are primarily offshore support vessels, and the transfer of industrial personnel often occurs in challenging environments. This requires specialist skills and control measures not required in usual passenger operations. These amendments recognise and support the uniqueness of the offshore sector and the importance of protecting the lives and health of those involved in these activities as we look to the future possibilities of the maritime, offshore and energy sectors, and I commend the bill to the House.
The question is that this bill be now read a second time. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Against, no. I think the ayes have it. If no member wishes to I call the clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an Act to amend the Navigation Act 2012 and for related purposes.
If no member wishes to consider the bill in detail, I will put the report question immediately. The question is that this bill be reported to the House without amendment. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Against, no. I think the ayes have it.
I move that the Federation Chamber do now adjourn.
And I second that motion.
Mr Vassar wants to speak. I call the member for Bonner.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Some years ago I started and ran a small Italian restaurant in Carina called Elio's. While it was a labour of love, I understand the frustration, anxiety and instability of managing a small business. Not only satisfying customers but tracking finances, understanding the law and taking care of employees is no easy task. While it's easy for some politicians to welcome rising costs when someone else is paying for it, we actually need to support entrepreneurs and innovators to increase competition and drive down costs. Small to medium enterprises make up 98% of all Australian businesses, employing 70% of the workforce and creating $500 billion in economic activity. Generating 1/3 of our GDP, we can't deny the substantial economic contributions of many mums, dads and students and other self-starters who are brave enough to leap into business. I was recently able to support the Small Business Newcomer Award at the Bayside Community Awards, and that's a celebration of great businesses, organisations, individuals and those delivering excellence in customer service in the Bayside community of Brisbane. With 380 people in attendance at the Winner-Manly Leagues Club, I want to thank the Bayside Community Fund team for their efforts in bringing the event to life. Although I was in Canberra on the night, the range and quality of nominations across all categories was unreal. Congratulations to all those nominated, especially to the Tasty Pocket on securing the win. Earlier this year, Eliza and Justin took their Greek fusion food truck to the next level and opened a restaurant right near my office. Only a coalition government will fight for people just like Justin and Eliza, who are running a successful enterprise, contributing to our national economy and our local community. We've always been the party of less red tape and simpler, fairer taxes. So while insolvencies are at record highs, with more than 11,000 companies faltering in the last financial year, I urge owners and customers alike to ask, who is going to remove the complexity and hostility of Labor's industrial relations agenda, which is putting unreasonable burdens on businesses? We need a coalition government with a plan to rein in inflationary spending, a plan to extend the value of the instant asset write-off to $30,000, and a plan to remove red tape by restoring the pre-existing definition of a casual worker. That's right, we will bring certainty to our small businesses with policies that promote productivity and innovation.
Questions of the House do now adjourn. I call the member for Warringah.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Australia's abundant natural resources provide an untapped opportunity to establish ourselves as leaders in the clean energy sector. But Australia is failing to rise to these opportunities as we now sit 52nd on the World Global Climate Change Performance Index, now sitting among the low-performing countries of the world, because this government's payment of fossil fuel subsidies continues and there is a continued approval of coal and gas projects. Not only that, on this drop of the index, Australia has been graded low in renewable energy as the government continues to expand exploration and extraction of gas, putting fuel on global warming. You cannot claim a gold star when it comes to saying you're going to act on climate change and continue extracting and expanding coal and gas. First Nations engagement in climate transition is where we can look to great opportunities. This is all despite our knowledge that the transition renewable energy presents an opportunity to empower our local communities to benefit of immense opportunities in climate transitions. First Nations communities have resource-rich lands and deep knowledge of country and culture. We know that Indigenous-led projects bring enormous opportunity to our regional and rural communities through driving improved health and wellbeing outcomes, providing much-needed investment in critical infrastructure and creating sustainable employment opportunities. But there are significant barriers and they remain. Access to capital is a major challenge. Many Indigenous communities, despite being asset-rich, are cash-poor due to over 200 years of systemic economic disempowerment. Without the necessary financial resources to begin project development, these communities are often excluded from meaningful participation in renewable energy industry and projects. So while the government has expressed public support for harnessing this opportunity, for traditional owners, words alone are insufficient and it is ultimately empty. What is needed is consistent, meaningful action to break down barriers, provide access to resources and ensure that Indigenous communities can lead and thrive in the transition. So what does this mean? The Aboriginal Clean Energy Partnership brings together MG Corporation, Balangara Aboriginal Corporation, Kimberley Land Council, Pollination in a groundbreaking collaboration. Together, they are pioneering a transformative approach to enhancing the self-determination and economic empowerment of Australia's traditional owners, particularly through the East Kimberley Clean Energy Project. This partnership represents an Australia-first model, a First Nations-owned and led initiative focused on developing a commercial-scale green hydrogen and ammonia project in Western Australia. Where are the headlines? Why isn't the government absolutely knocking down the door to support this kind of project? This partnership represents such a first, and it is a landmark project in several ways, being the first 100% green hydrogen and ammonia export venture in Australia and the first energy development to actively engage traditional owner groups as stakeholders in the project on their land. The project highlights the immense value and impact First Nations majority-owned partnerships. By implementing a co-design and co-creation approach, it showcases how clean energy projects on country can deliver significant benefits, not just for Indigenous communities, but the entire nation. So each stakeholder holds an equal 25% stake in the project, contributing complementary skills and strategic resources to its success. This initiative is more than a clean energy project. It's a pathway for First Nations people to generate capital, improve living standards and reinvest in further renewable energy opportunities. By empowering Indigenous communities as leaders in the energy transition, this project plays a pivotal and vital role in Australia's shift from fossil fuels to sustainable clean energy solutions, but empowering First Nations communities. For far too long, Indigenous Australians have been excluded from meaningful equity in traditional energy generation. This is a reality that must change, and a project like this is where you can start. While the Aboriginal Clean Energy Partnership has set a commendable example by actively engaging traditional owners, this approach must become the standard, not the exception.
And I call the member for Lyons.
Thank you, Speaker. The Albanese Labor government continues to deliver in the regions. Last Saturday, the Minister for Education announced that Sorell, in my electorate, will be home to one of 10 suburban university study hubs across the country. Study hubs provide student support and campus-style facilities for students in a university or TAFE course without having to leave their community. That's a big win for the future students of Sorell. Congratulations to Business and Employment South East Tasmania, known as BEST, for its successful application. Next week, Deputy Speaker, the doors will open on Tasmania's 5th urgent care clinic in Bridgewater, joining 2 in Hobart, 1 in your own electorate of Launceston in Bass, and 1 in Devonport. I strongly made the case for the people of Bridgewater to have an alternative option to driving into the city for non-emergency medical care. And that will also benefit the areas of Brighton, the Derwent Valley and Hobart's northern suburbs. It brings bulk billed non-emergency care closer to home, taking the pressure off Hobart's Royals Emergency Department. It's a huge win for the area, and I'm proud to see it inching closer to reality. And next month, we open a new Services Australia Centre in Sorell, a $3 million facility fully staffed that will save people a trip to Hobart or the Eastern Shore. Deputy Speaker, our Labor government is also doubling roads funding for councils with more than $57 million heading to Lyons. The Albanese Labor government's Australian General Practice Training Program, being delivered in partnership with the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, is training regional GPs in St Helens and Swansea. We are ensuring the sustainability of regional childcare facilities with recent funding to support the families of Bicheno, Triabunna, Campbelltown, Baghdad, Evandale and Longford, with more than $500,000 of support. We're funding aged care upgrades in Deloraine and Swansea, supporting the rights of all older people in regional Tasmania to have access to safe and high-quality aged care services, regardless of where they live. Schools in Triabunna and New Norfolk are benefiting from our schools upgrade funding to help build or upgrade infrastructure. And we are supporting farmers with water projects across the state, with the Prime Minister visiting Tasmania just last week to announce that he's providing $150 million for the South East Irrigation Scheme to ensure that farmers in the South East, one of the drier areas in Tasmania, gets the water they need. And it's not an election commitment, it's not waiting till after the election, it's funded now, it's happening. And that's in addition to $270 million on Tasmanian water infrastructure projects already committed by this government, providing highly reliable water to expand irrigation districts and supporting regional economic development, including the Northern Midlands Irrigation Scheme, the Sassafras Wesley Vale Irrigation Scheme augmentation, and the Don Irrigation Scheme, which was officially opened last year. And we're supporting funding for regional infrastructure, like the $1.5 million for the Bicheno Gulch Foreshore and Esplanade upgrade, $4.4 million for the Longford Memorial Hall and Village Green revitalisation, $500,000 for Prospect Park upgrades to enable Launceston City Football Club to grow, $500,000 for the St Helens RSL redevelopment, $5 million for the Launceston Airport check-in hall and security expansion, and $15 million for the RFDS upgrade at Launceston Airport, and $3.7 million for Perth Early Learning Centre upgrades. The Liberals and the Nationals claim to be the only parties to support the regions, but this just demonstrates how false that is. After spending 5 of my 8 years in this place in opposition, I have seen firsthand how Tasmania was kept off the map. And the Liberals and the Nationals always seem to forget that cashiers and teachers and childcare workers and police and aged care workers and shop attendants and butchers and road workers and office workers all live in the regions too. And Labor's bigger tax cuts for ordinary workers, our cheaper medicines, the higher wages that we are backing in, the record jobs growth, they all support regional workers and regional communities. Over the past 3 years, a Labor government has made a huge impact in Lyons, and it's in my constituents' best interests that Lyons and the nation are represented by Labor. Rebecca White is Labor's candidate for Lyons at the next federal election, and I look forward to her being elected as part of a re-elected Australian Labor government, so Labor can get on with the job of rebuilding our regions.
I call the member for Hughes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Since being elected in May 2022, it has been the greatest privilege of my life to represent and serve the electorate of Hughes, which is in the southwest and Sutherland Shire, the western end of the Sutherland Shire. Now the Electoral Commissioner has moved various suburbs into my electorate. These are Bardia, Glenfield, Ingleburn, Long Point, Macquarie Fields and Macquarie Links. I am proud that I will have the chance, going into the next election, to have the opportunity to serve these communities in this place. I want to work with the people of South West Sydney to get South West Sydney back on track. Deputy Speaker, the South West Sydney is positioned to be an immense growth area over the next 2 decades. It's got projects and initiatives like Western Sydney International Airport, which is set to open 24 hours, 7 days a week in 2026. Southwest as well will have the new city of Bradfield, which will be located in the local government area of Liverpool. But since May 2022, the Albanese Labor government has comprehensively failed to deliver for the communities in southwest Sydney, particularly for those in the Liverpool local government area and in the Campbelltown local government area. For example, with the airport, the Sydney West Airport, Western Sydney Airport. This is a brand new airport in the most populous city and the most populous state in our nation. However, the federal government has failed to deliver the infrastructure for such a crucial project. To be clear, Deputy Speaker, the Coalition, when in government, had set up an infrastructure plan to enable rail links into the southwest, from the southwest into the airport and back. They'd also propositioned that there would be road links going in there. Since May 2022, the Infrastructure Minister, and while we're talking about a new city, I think it is I think it's questionable, Deputy Speaker, the judgment of this Prime Minister that he did not have a portfolio specifically linked to cities. Former coalition governments have usually always had a cities minister representing that it's a very important part of the ministry that somebody in that ministry has oversight of all of the cities and how they link within our nation, a very geographically large nation. This Prime Minister has instead made the decision to put it all in infrastructure. So that means his only interest in the new Bradfield city, which is in southwestern Sydney, is just in terms of what infrastructure does it need. Well, the infrastructure that it did need has been pulled by Infrastructure Minister King. Just this week it was reported that she has pulled the funding for the Western Sydney Airport link. The Minister has claimed that the interchange between the M7 and M12, two major motorways in New South Wales, is something that the federal government is not party to. This is despite a $110 million commitment by the previous Liberal government. The Liberals recognise the importance of a new international airport. The Liberals recognise the importance to the southwest that this airport will bring. It brings an opportunity for much-needed employment into that area. For example, it also brings the opportunity for us to showcase the southwest to visitors and tourists coming into our country. But that is not something that this Labor government has prioritised. I'm not even sure if the Infrastructure Minister has been to southwest Sydney. So, regrettably, Deputy Speaker, the contempt this government clearly has for the people of Sydney South West does not stop here. alongside the cut to vital infrastructure, an additional 50 projects will no longer receive a single cent in funding from the Albanese Labor government. But I'll tell you, Deputy Speaker, as we're moving into a federal election, if the Liberals are elected, if the coalition is elected, we will fund South West Sydney. We will, for example, connect Campbelltown back into Sydney. We will look at establishing the Campbelltown Community and Justice Precinct. We will get South West Sydney back on track. We'll get Australia back on track.
Has expired, and I call the member for Boothby.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Tuesday this week was International Men's Day, and here in Parliament House, the Speaker hosted Movember Institute of Men's Health. While my background in women's health is perhaps well known, what is less well known is that I was also the policy lead for men's health when I worked in SA Health. In Australia, men's life expectancy is 4 years less than women's. 37% of men die prematurely before they are 75 years of age. The leading causes of premature mortality in Australian men is, in descending order, cardiovascular disease, heart attacks and strokes, lung cancer, suicide, which is the leading cause of death amongst men aged 15 to 44, colorectal cancer, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD. Some of these conditions have lifestyle factors, others are preventable or curable with early diagnosis and intervention. A lot of these conditions are avoidable or at least curable. There's also a demographic aspect to this. Men in regional and remote areas have poorer health statistics. Men in lower socioeconomic areas have poorer health statistics. Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander men and men from culturally diverse backgrounds have poorer health statistics. And men from same-sex attracted and gender diverse communities have poorer health statistics. Additionally, there's a gender stereotype issue. Men report that they're expected to tough it out, not to seek help, and that the idea of having regular checkups and seeking help for symptoms, which is really important to actually maintaining health for anyone, is discouraged or socially unacceptable for them. Men also report gender stereotype issues when seeking help in the system. They say that clinicians don't respond to their needs, sometimes downplay their symptoms, or advise them to tough it out. I'd like to congratulate Movember for their excellent work in raising awareness and raising funds for men's health. Their report, The Real Face of Men's Health, is a sobering read. As they note, a gendered lens on health is not a competition, it's not an either-or proposition. Our health system needs to respond to the health needs of the entire population, and a gendered lens is simply another way of ensuring that the services we provide work for the entire community. Deputy Speaker, I'd also like to talk about the awards that were announced last night, the Australian Exporter of the Year. Congratulations to South Australia's Rising Sun Pictures, which is the 2024 Australian Exporter of the Year and winner of the Creative Industries category in this year's Australian Export Awards. If you want to know what Rising Sun Pictures do, they were heavily involved in Lord of the Rings. They've been involved in the latest versions of Mad Max, Indiana Jones, and a whole range of other well-known movies. So that's very exciting for us. We're also very thrilled that Fivecast SA also won the Advanced Technologies category. But yesterday I met with Rob Bowden from Maxim Skate, which is one of the finalists, and I think it's really worth talking about the fantastic medical device that they have created. So this looks like a skate, so like a roller skate that you will put on your foot. It has a sensor that goes up your leg, and it's actually a rehabilitation tool or instrument for people who've experienced a total knee reconstruction. And what they've found is that by using this device as part of your rehabilitation, to practice stretching out, pulling back, with your knee being totally supported, makes your rehabilitation much, much faster. They are now exporting around the world. They've been through the TGA process here in Australia, but they're also exporting to Europe, to Asia, and looking at the United Arab Emirates at the moment, and into America. And it is a fantastic rehabilitation tool that enables people to get out of hospital quicker, which saves costs to the system, saves costs to the person, but also they get a better rehabilitation outcome out of that. So congratulations to Maxim Skate. I think you're a very worthy finalist, unfortunately knocked out by Rising Sun Pictures on this occasion, but such a fantastic thing that's coming out of South Australia, out of actually the Tonsley Flinders University Research Institute there. Thank you.
I call the member for Fisher.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today's a good day. It's not very often you can say that in opposition, but today is a good day. Why is it a good day? Because the government today introduced a bill which will change the lives of many young Australians and their families. Now, this might sound strange coming from an opposition member, but, Madam Deputy Speaker, this is something I've been very, very passionate about for many years. In 2018, I hadn't been in this place very long, and most of us would remember the day when young Dolly Everett took her life. Dolly Everett was a happy young teenager. She was a poster girl, I think, for R.M. Williams. The world was her oyster. She was sort of the embodiment of success of a young teenage girl. But she was subjected to relentless bullying, and sadly in 2018, sadly is not the word, there's no adjective which suitably describes what happened. She took her own life, tragically. And as someone who has walked that mental health path as a dad, I was incredibly moved by her passing. And I thought, well, what can I do about this? So I ended up convening a meeting of the Digi Group in Sydney. The Digi Group is a group of all of the major electronic platforms, Google, Meta, although it wasn't Meta back then, the social media platforms. And we talked about what happened with Dolly and how we could put steps in place to try and ensure that Dolly would be the last. And I walked out of that meeting in Sydney. I think I will remember this meeting for the rest of my life, because I walked out of that meeting feeling so angry. I felt that I had just been transported back in time and that I had met with big tobacco in the 1960s and the 1970s. Because the response that I was getting to my questions was one of, it's all good, we've got this under control, we're doing everything we can, and I walked out of that meeting feeling so angry that these people either were willfully blind or that they were being obstructionist. Probably more obstructionist. And so I started a campaign. I felt so aggrieved on behalf of Tilly's family and every family that is undergoing and has undergone the sort of relentless stress that has come about by the effects of social media on their young people. And we know from English studies that, in fact, many parents sign their kids up to social media platforms before they even turn the required age of 13. That had to stop. And I was incredibly pleased when the Leader of the Opposition took up this cudgel more than 12 months ago and announced that he would support, in the first 100 days of a coalition government, a trial for age verification for social media. We then came out in July of this year and said that if we were elected, we would push and in fact legislate for a minimum age of 16 for social media. Peter Dutton has led from the front on this. The bill, as I've had a short opportunity to read it, is not perfect, but I welcome it. The provision of a legislated duty of care will ensure that these platforms have nowhere to run, because there will be lawyers out there who will be able to now, when this bill is passed, sue on behalf of their clients.
Members, time has expired. I call the Assistant Minister. I call the Assistant Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And I rise today to pay tribute to an Eden Monero local who has committed his life to serving his community. Yass Valley Councillor Alan McGrath has been involved in local government for 50 years, after first being elected to Queanbeyan City Council on the 21st of September 1974. Councillor McGrath has called Yass home since 1998 and has been actively involved in the community through various organisations. He was well known as the face behind Kids Blitz, a beloved local toy and gift shop in Yass, which he ran for 11 years. He had a vision to foster a cleaner, greener and more prosperous Yass Valley. Councillor McGrath has just finished a term as Mayor and is now serving the community again as a local councillor who at the age of 82 has given so much and still has so much more to give. I'd like to share with the Chamber a truly transformative change that this government is having on healthcare in Queanbeyan. We have delivered the Queanbeyan Medicare Urgent Care Clinic, which is the single biggest improvement to healthcare in Queanbeyan since the introduction of Medicare. I hear from constituents every day about the benefits of this service, keeping families away from the hospital ED and taking pressure off the system. And a local healthcare worker recently wrote to me saying this: as a healthcare worker in Queanbeyan at the hospital pathology and a medical scientist, opening the urgent care clinic here in Queanbeyan has made a massive impact with the emergency department and the turnaround time with patients and quicker triage. Labor is making tangible improvements in the lives of everyday Australians, from workers and their families. I'm proud to be part of a government that is making these changes and will continue to advocate for the healthcare needs across all of Eden Monero. I'd like to recognise the latest recipients of the Goulburn Mulwarry Award, two local photographers whose work has deeply enriched the community. Throughout their lives, Jim Webb and Daryl Finance have captured thousands of moments in the Goulburn region. Until his recent retirement, Daryl worked for the Goulburn Post, capturing events ranging from helicopter accidents to community events like the 2019 Goulburn Rodeo. Reflecting on his years of service, Daryl remarked, "It's to record history. Things should be recorded and shared. There is no good putting them away in a box." And while Darrow documented local events, Jim's work also played a crucial role in capturing the community's essence. Photography has been a lifelong passion for Jim, who has taken thousands of photos at community events, including the recent Lilac Festival where he won the award. I'd like to congratulate these men on their efforts and dedication to Goulburn Mulwarry. The award is well deserved, and I encourage everybody to check out their work via Facebook and the Goulburn Post, where their photographs tell the stories of the community. I want to pay credit to a family in my electorate that has provided a total of 85 years continuous full-time service to the Royal Australian Air Force. I recently had the pleasure of meeting Warrant Officer Carrie Thompson, who told me about his incredible career with the Air Force, along with his wife, Sergeant Leanne Thompson, and son, Squadron Leader Nathan Thompson. Throughout the family's career, they have represented the ADF and the Australian Government on international tasking, detachments and postings, including with DFAT at the Australian High Commission in Singapore and Deployment Command in the UK in support of new capability acquisition and introduction to ADF service. When Leanne transitions from full-time service at the end of this year, it will see a cumulative contribution of the family to multiple deployments, including to Iraq and the Middle East, domestic and regional deployments in support of humanitarian aid and disaster relief, including flood, tsunami, earthquake and fire devastations over 4 decades. Warrant Officer Carrie, Sergeant Leanne and Squadron Leader Nathan Thompson have contributed to the security and advancement of Australia's interests through their dedicated commitment to the ADF for 85 years and continue to contribute through active reservist employment since transferring from permanent service. Thank you for your incredible service to our community, to our country. We are so proud to have you as part of the mighty Eden Monero. Today, I want to acknowledge my sincere condolences to the O'Donovan family following the passing of Ned O'Donovan from Chira Beach. Beloved husband of Barbara, dad to Michelle and Rebecca, and pop to Carenza, Zane and Sienna. His daughter, Rebecca, described Ned as an absolute legend. And Deputy Speaker, a memorial for Ned is being held in my electorate right now, and I send my condolences to his family and the broader Bega Valley. He worked at the Bega Valley Shire for nearly 3 decades in various roles, but was the Merimbula Town Team leader and known as affectionately as the Mayor of Merimbula. He had a cheeky grin, he was always up for mischief, he loved a punt. Ned, you will be sorely missed in our community. Vale Ned O'Donovan.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The Federation Chamber stands adjourned until 10:30 a.m. on Monday the 25th of November 2024.
you.